Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London, and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry and all those places as Skeindeer, and I design as Skeindeer Knits on Ravelry. I have my whole Ravelry shop there where I make knitting patterns, and yeah, definitely go check those out. I will put links down below for all that stuff. But yeah, welcome to another episode of Skeindeer Knits. This is the second episode that I'm filming from my new place. So I've been doing this for new viewers since 2016. I used to make weekly videos of what I knit, eventually also what I ended up designing, and then life happened and these videos have got a little bit less regular, but I'm sort of hoping to change that around a little bit now that I have my own place and sort of can manage my own time, although that's never really been my forte. So hello to new and returning viewers alike. I have three sort of projects to talk to you guys about today, and then I'll talk a little bit about a knitting event that I have been to and just like general life stuff. So let's just get right into it. But there's going to be a lot of editing in this beginning of this episode, I can already tell, because I am stumbling on my words so much because I'm tired. I'm like very tired. I think I've been sat here like on my desk just sort of like contemplating whether I should record at all and kind of sort of putting it off. But I know if I start any later than right now, there will be no daylight to speak of, and yeah, so we gotta get through with it. I am exhausted. It's just been a wild ride ever since moving in here. Silly me for thinking that moving ends when you're in the new place rather than that's really where everything starts, and my goodness, has a lot of things happened. I also had the pleasure of having a lovely friend stay over and also been to unravel, and I am unraveling. I'm so tired. I feel like sleeping, but I can't sleep. I'm very bad at napping, and I wanted to sleep in this morning, but my neighbor's dogs wanted it otherwise, and so when my body's used to waking up at that hour anyway, there's really not much you can do. If there's just been a slight little noise, I'm up. So here we are, just kind of, I am technically awake, but I do not feel it. So yeah, just bear with me. I just might have to take it a little bit slow today. I am taking it slow today. You sit here and you just think like, this is not going to be my finest work, but we're just going to do it. Because I've been saying I just want to do more of it and just, bring my own expectations down, if anything. So what have I been knitting on since last time? The Azor pullover by Orlane Sucche. Pronunciation again, not entirely sure, but it is growing. It has definitely grown, and it has now one whole sleeve to speak of, so that's really nice. All the way down to the cuff and everything. Isn't that wonderful? Celebrating the small victories, okay? Yeah, yes. And the other sleeve is actually not that far off. I could have finished this in time for the episode, but I kind of have this like general thinking that like, I don't know, if I knit for me and I have the podcast for the knitting. If I start knitting for the podcast, we're going to see very little knitting. The motivation has to be the other way around. That's just how that is. I think a lot of podcasters can probably feel that. Like once you start feeling like, oh, I got to do this knitting for this podcast I'm doing this, knitting stops being fun very quickly. The podcast is for the knitting. The knitting is not for the podcast. And yeah, so this is kind of where it's at. Still has no body really. I guess I did a couple of inches before I changed over to the sleeves, because I just always do that. I like to mix it up and make sure that I have properly finished the sleeves before, I spent the rest of the yarn for the body, even though I do have plenty of yarn in this one. There will be lots of leftovers. Could probably do another jumper. Kind of just wanted you to get a little catch up with that. There's not really a whole lot other to say. I think mostly the decreases of these sleeves were more my own calculations, because I changed the stitch count, so I sort of put that on me. Everything else I've had to say about this pattern I did say last episode, but yeah, I am just generally enjoying it. I think it is good, it is nice, very much like how it looks. Obviously that's why I started making it, and that's where I'm keeping at it. So yeah, it should be pretty straightforward from here. I feel like with me and yokes, it's like once I'm past the color work and split for the sleeves and the body, I don't really look at the patterns anymore. I don't know why anyone need a pattern. That's just when you just knit to the length where you want, like, I get some people want a pattern for that too. But yeah, at that point, it's just smooth sailing for me. And that's kind of what this is right now. And just to repeat myself, I am using Pickles Pure Wool. This is the next bowl of yarn that I'm about to embark on. I bought this yarn back in 2017, I think. This was my first foray into Knit Picks Pure Wool. Will definitely not be my last, but it has taken me a while to knit with just this yarn and not holding it double with anything. And it's a really nice yarn, so if you're ever in Oslo, you can definitely get your mitts on that yarn in their shop. I really like them. So, oh, and I don't really talk about project bags anymore, but I really wanted to put this in this beautiful, very wintry woodlands project bag that I bought in Norway from Muskari. So thought I would just mention that. Is just so adorable. And I freaked out the other day because I thought I had forgotten it somewhere, maybe even on the tube, but turns out I had just put it somewhere around here. It's still kind of happening. This is, you know, fairly new to me place after all, and I misplace things a lot because I still haven't got into the habit of where I put various things, especially my phone, until I got my desk set up done. But that phone was a lot of places I had no idea where. So shush. Oh, to live on the ground floor, what can I say? And that may surprise people. We're not even 8 minutes in, and that's the end of the knitting for this episode. What have I been doing then? I've actually been dabbling in crochet again, if you can believe that. I am so bad at crochet. I mean, I'm not for negative self-talk here. This is just an honest objective. I just take on my skills on crocheting. I know a lot of people find crochet the easier craft, and I think that's just because a lot of people start with crochet and then they knit. Being from Norway, that's not really the order it happens there most of the time. I'm sure I'm gonna get lots of comments down like, but I did. I'm like, great for you. I didn't. And so I am notoriously bad at crochet, and it doesn't seem like I'm gonna improve anytime soon. I'm gonna try to explain what I mean by that, because I am persevering, I'm carrying on. I have crocheted lots before. It just, I know if you plateau, you just gotta challenge yourself and it'll be fine. But I need to explain to you what my problem here is. So I have a lot of scraps and leftovers. There's lots of leftovers on this table behind me here that you may be able to see a little bit. And I'm trying to get through just a lot of those like Finul, Tove, Navia Duo, PT2, Ask, leftovers and single balls and skeins that I've had for years, that I've always kept because it is my bread and butter yarn. These 2-ply woolen spun sportish fingering weight yarns that I will always use for something, for mittens, for cardigans, pullovers, color work, anything that isn't socks, pretty much I will use it for. So I've just never been in a rush to use those leftovers up the way I have with other leftovers. And at some point, after a given amount of years, when you're getting past over half a decade, we may just have to just have a bit of a real talk with each other and just say, look, are we ever going to use up this yarn? We're just keeping it just in case, just might need it, you know? Because I think that's maybe what I'm doing a little bit, because I can't get my mitts on these yarns around here, most of them. Tove and PT2 got discontinued. I have a hard time getting hold of Ask both in the UK and in my hometown in Norway. And Finul I can get in Norway but not in the UK because Brexit happened and now you just can't get mitts on pretty much anything. So that's, yeah, don't get me started. But I'm, you know, keeping a lot of this yarn around because it's going to be so hard to get it next time. But I can ask people I know various places in the world to send it to me if I absolutely need it, and that is kind of what I've been doing lately anyway. So at the end of the day, I'm just going to use up these. I'm a little bit more precious about my Tove and PT2, I will admit, and there were some intact balls I've just put aside and will maybe use them or not, because these colours are just, I can't come by them anymore, and I know I struggled a lot to even find them in the first place. But all these like other Finul whatevers, I've just put them all here, and I've started to organise them into what I want to put into a crochet blanket because they are the same weight. And the colours will contrast well if I use, say, a white border. Now, fun fact, I've changed my mind and might want to go with a black border anyway, so it might look a bit similar to my last blanket, but I might not as well. So all the light colours went one place, all the other colours into this blanket pile, and then every other leftover yarn that I had that wasn't even in this category of sport fingering weight woolen spun yarns, I've also put in the other light yarn pile, and decided to just hold all these together and do another crochet basket. I have done 3 of these before. There's one that's currently holding my laundry, and then I have another 2 back there. There's one there that I use for like just various projects, and there's another there that I actually haven't even finished yet. in mostly the calendar yarn I got from Circus Tonic Handmade, but also like other calendar yarns and hand-dyed leftovers that I had. I kind of like to split them up into hand-dyed superwash and regular non-superwash leftovers, which seems to be the two categories I use anyway. So I've got thus far with the basket. This has taken a while, but not as long as you might think given the sheer size of this, because I'm holding so many strands together. We're getting quite a thick thread here, right? You can get the scale of this, hopefully. A lot of happy colors. It's given Sesame Street color galore, and I have done this much. And this is like probably the firmest basket I have done yet. I don't know if we can get some focus there. That's lovely. This is very firm and it's holding up itself. So yeah, the fourth basket's the charm, I guess, but I've actually managed to find the right balance between the thickness of the yarn, the size of the hook, and my tension, which we'll get to in a bit, and why I'm slagging off my crochet skills. Because this basket's looking really nice, isn't it? I managed to get the bottom flat and everything. I did add a couple of extra increases here and there that maybe wasn't necessarily made a bit wobblier when it was actually already flat. I was just worried it was curving up, and that's kind of how you adjust for that. If you want to find the pattern for that, I totally blanked on the name, but it is in my Ravelry projects if I forget to write it down here. But yeah, it's a free pattern and it's pretty straightforward. Even for me who can't crochet to save my life, though I did get some good help with the first one that I made. I want to show you the underside, because that's like kind of the side that I put most of the colors I don't know a whole lot about what to do with, because it's the bottom of the thing that you start with, right? But it's also the one that you're going to end up seeing less when you're done with it. So that's where we're really dealing with a bit of a color party, and there's a very like bright lime yarn going through here that I'm glad I just put onto here, because it is kind of cool and fun to look at, but I don't think I want the whole basket to look like that. So I'm kind of going with a more mild kind of white and whatever other colors I happen to have at hand here. There's only just one problem. I am running out of leftovers. So normally when I made these, I used to weigh them. So if you are at about 800 grams to a kilo, you're probably going to be fine. But I haven't weighed them, so I actually don't know how much I have. And I may have used slightly more strands together than I normally do. So that might be also why I'm running out a lot quicker, because this is all I have left. And that just won't do, because a lot of these strands I'm holding together are, we're really at the final, like this, it's not a lot left here. This bright white that I just never used up, because I really don't use bleached white ever. I used unbleached or grace even. So that one's probably going to stay through. So will this. There's a lot of whites here, but I need more leftovers, so maybe I'll start digging into my PT2s. But also there's the Navia duos. But yeah, one last look at this whole basket situation. I think I might give it to a friend of mine, because there's only so many baskets that I can have. Though this is probably the one I'm the happiest about, because the colors are kind of cool and it is very sturdy and it doesn't just collapse unless you put things in it. So that's quite neat. But yeah, I also have a bunch of Navia duo. This isn't even all of it that I put on my table that I might put into this basket. It's just a shame because they are intact balls of yarns, or pretty close to that, and I haven't used them for anything else. And I could, you know, they're not leftovers as such, but I haven't used them yet. It's not like Navia duos. I don't actually know how easy they are to come by anymore, because they used to be in a local yarn shop, but they haven't stocked them in years. Maybe they're available elsewhere. I actually don't know, but this is one of my oldest stash entries. This is some of the first yarn I bought. I got this back in 2016. At some point, something's gotta give, and I wonder if this may need to go into the basket, because if you have the yarn for this long and nothing's happening to it, the same goes for this onesie that I was going to make for my nephew when I was still kind of learning how to grade for babies. I don't care for getting into exactly how this happened, but let's just say I got the measurements a little bit wrong and this is not even going to fit a newborn. So I've just kind of kept this to the side. It's got even buttons in and everything, and I was just going to knit the kind of bottom part, buttoning up where the diaper is, maybe, I don't know. But it's not going to fit any baby whatsoever. It's way too tiny even for a newborn. Maybe just a newborn, but like that's like the first, what, 3 days. I don't want to finish this unless it's going to be fun for someone I know, and it just isn't. So I don't want to frog it either, because I did put in a little work in it. It's definitely not going to become a pattern, because there was just a bunch of issues I found not really worthwhile dealing with, and especially the buttoning up here are really neat, yes, because you can get it around the head, but they aren't comfortable up here. It's just a bit awkward. So the whole thing just wasn't working out, but it is very cute, and you can see it's with the pattern. But yeah, that might just get the frog, and I might just put that in the blanket, and that will give us a bit more Navia duo to work with. But again, it seems a bit of a shame. So that's generally my dilemma with this. It's like, do I want to use up all this beautiful yarn for this? But also like, this is actually a really useful thing that I'm making. It's not just like, oh, whatever, leftovers. And it's also yarn that I haven't purposed, haven't used, haven't put into any project for so long. Nearly 8 years. It is about 8 years. Yeah. Maths are hard. At some point, that's like that's good. I don't know if I'm having this dilemma, but I just thought I'd mention it in case people can relate, because yeah. Oh well. So let's get into why I'm terrible at crochet. Why am I saying this? This basket was fine. What's the problem? Right, so in addition to doing this basket, right, I put the other leftovers aside to do a crochet blanket. Now, unlike my other crochet blanket project that I'm sort of putting in hiatus every now and then because it's with close to lace weight yarn, where I'm changing the color every round, and they're this small. Yeah, it's just a lot of ends, it's just a lot of everything. So I wanted something that was going to be a bit faster, a bit bigger, but still using, you know, these woolen spun finer yarns, but they're sport weights, so I can make them bigger and loftier. Cool, right. So I started off with these lovely little squares. This was my first one, lovely little orange, right? I have a whole orange skein of fenil here that I used for my nephew's onesie. Whatever's left, just go ahead and use it up, right? No problem, can always get this yarn later. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. It's a nice little circle in the middle here. You can see it turns into a square. No complaints, no notes. Right, so I start off doing another color. I'm on a vibe here, right? Like yellow, cool, great. Already here, I was running into issues. I'm trying to put this perfectly overlapping from one corner. You can maybe start to see. It's a little bit smaller. Same yarn, same hook. Keeps getting smaller. Hold that thought. I did another color. Also getting smaller. At some point I did start to settle on the size. But this, no. And I was actually going to pick up this as well, but I did actually recrochet this because they just keep changing size. In addition to having this like ever shrinking square, no matter like every time I make another square, I also was having some hook issues. Now this is not the reason why, or the primary reason why my squares kept on shrinking on me. This happened whether I changed hook or not, but it didn't help that I didn't get on with the hook that I was using. It definitely amplified what was already happening, and I will show you an example of that in the end. But let me just talk about the hooks that I have used for just a bit. By the way, this is how I've attempted to organize my hooks and Knit Pro needles. Also, this chair rotates a lot. I have no control over this. But I had to raise my legs just to keep this on my lap, but oh well. We struggle on. Yes. So, I started off with this hook. This is the Prim Ergonomics hook. Now I swear by these when it comes to the crochet basket. They keep my hands from hurting. They're very easy to use. There's a big nice handle. Like, I have no notes. However, I did also buy this in all the sizes. Just adjusting the chair here. And the 3mm hook I think I used for the tiny square crochet blanket that I keep talking about, but not showing you because it's like over there in a bag of effort. It snapped, not once, but twice. I replaced the first one and it also snapped. I was like, right, this is not user error anymore. And I did actually talk to Prim about that briefly. And they were like, yeah, they are ergonomic hooks for people with particular, like, I think it was like arthritis. And so naturally, it's made for people who aren't having this like monster grip that I clearly have going by my ever shrinking squares. So yeah. Maybe it was a bit of user error. I'm not supposed to be using them for my like tight grip crochet on tiny hooks and sizes, everything, and the way I'm clearly a very tight crocheter. So they're not the right fit for me for smaller sizes, but the larger hooks, amazing, I swear by them. But I don't for these squares, because when I was making these squares, these fenil squares, squeak, 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 squeak. This plastic hook and that yarn, no match in heaven. I don't know why it works perfectly well when I'm holding several strands together for the basket, but for this, no. The sound is awful, the feel is awful, there's something about the plastic here that doesn't mix well with a single strand of feel. I don't know what it is, but I couldn't stand it, and I ordered some Clover Amour hooks that I had plenty of, just not in the right size, and I couldn't wait. They couldn't come soon enough. I got a whole set, so let me show you. So yeah, I'm not crazy about how I've organized this. I kind of just wanted a case for my hooks, and then I ended up just finding a very big case because these prim hooks are so long that I used the rest of it for my knit pros, and that's the part I'm not keen on. But yes, so here are my big prim hooks, and here are my old and new crochet Clover Amour hooks. So they live in here, and that's my acquisitions, I guess. I totally forgot to write that in the acquisitions, but here we are. Where I'm at in my crochet journey as of right now, again, I'm not an experienced crocheter. There are other people who are, who you should probably listen to more than me. But where I'm at right now, for the smaller half of the crochet hook range, these, for sure, Clover Amour, by far. For the larger hook sizes, so I don't know how big is 4.5 is clearly too small for this, so maybe like 6, 7 plus, these prim ergonomics hooks. So that's kind of my two preferred ones right now. And that being said, I haven't tried the larger ones of these yet, but I do like these a lot. So that's kind of where I keep alternating between depending on crochet hook size. Now, I not only kept shrinking my squares and definitely changing over to this hook, shrank them even more. Then I took my crochet public. I went to a meetup in London, and this is what happened. I'm just going to do a comparison here again. This is the first one I made underneath one of the ones that I made at this meetup, hanging out with the people. I don't know if you can see this. Both are made with a 4.5 crochet hook. I kid you not, by the same person with the same yarn. When I say I'm terrible at crochet, this is what I'm talking about. My tension is just like ever tightening for every square, and if you combine just the I have made more squares, I know how these squares are made, to I am now hanging out with people and I'm in public, and I have now changed the hook to Clover. This is the combination of that is really quite something. I think I have settled on like roughly this size. Like I think this is the ones I'm doing for the most part, so you can see it fall somewhere in between, right? And I think the burgundy one, which is such a lovely color by the way, is the safe bet here. So I may have to frog this smaller one, definitely the larger one. I just like to have them right now just to see my extremes, and from there I will definitely just, yeah, pick the ones in the size in the middle and hope that I consistently crochet to that size, because this is ridiculous. I can deal with some variation. It's a crochet blanket, it'll be fine. Like a little bit of variation we can deal with. This is kind of hilarious to me, and I hope it is to you too. And anyway, I want to show you all my squares. So I've been quite productive. These are all my squares. They are so much quicker to make when just doing them in one color, it turns out. So yes, sizes varying just a slight bit. Most of them are quite consistent. There are just these outliers that I just showed you. I think this blanket will be fine. I'm a little bit unsure about these like dark blues that I've used here, because I kind of want to go with a black border and they're not going to exactly show that well. But maybe that's just fine. I don't really want to overthink this project. A white border would be nice too. To be fair, having anything in a light color around me and the way that I eat is like kind of not safe, to be honest. I don't know. I could do a grey. I'm still thinking. It's not something I have to decide on just yet. But I like this color range. There's a lot of kind of autumn shades, but there's also like some that are just like very surprising. And yeah, it's this is like the tower of crochet squares. I feel like I've got to a stage now where I'm happy with the productivity levels, the output here, because the stack is falling over a lot, and I'm like, okay, it's happening. It's like, so that's really all I have been making since last time. It's been a lot of crochet. It's not really like me, and yeah, I mean, I've also been awfully busy, in case I didn't harp on enough about that earlier, because I can barely string together a sentence today. I hope you guys are having fun trying to make sense of this rambling episode, but yeah, you know, that's cool. So yesterday was fun. I went to Unravel. So for those of you who don't know, Unravel is a annual February yarn festival that has actually also now started to happen in the autumn as well, which is fun. But yeah, it's the kind of February one that is like the one that goes way back, and I've been going there since I think 2017 was my first, if I'm not entirely mistaken. And it's just such a fun show. It's right outside of London. It's really easy to get to. It's in Farnham. You can just get there with a train from Waterloo. And turns out I can get to Waterloo from here just as easily as the last place I lived. So no complaints here. And yeah, it's just always such a good time because, I don't know, I was very tired before going, and I really felt like that could have been a day I could have taken to sleep in and have a rest. But I was also like, I never regret going to Unravel. It is always such a good time, no matter how exhausted I might be in my body after it. It replenishes my knitting community brain, if that makes sense. Because really, like, that's like one of the few places I get to meet other knitters, like from the community that I do my business. Like, yes, I go to knitting meetups, I hang out with knitters a lot. I even met people from my local knitting group there. But I don't really ever get to meet my colleagues in that kind of sense, you know, like I work from home, and there's something that like brings me down to earth by going to these places and actually getting to meet the people that I'm normally only engaged with virtually, if even that. So it's just so nice. Like, I can't really like put into words enough how nice it is, although we do talk about it to each other when we're there. And yeah, I have kind of mentioned that before as well. It's just very lovely, okay? And I got to meet a bunch of you guys as well, so that was so cool. I don't know why I do this, but like in my brain when I get comments on the videos, I like imagine that the comment is written by someone who's like literally as far away from me on this planet as possible. So I guess somewhere on a boat in the Pacific Sea, I don't know. But like, I just like imagine that you guys are so far away. And oftentimes like people do that, like you put in like greetings from and you write a place that's far away, because like that's why you would mention it, greetings from London is like less likely to be written on a video recording in London. But you know, lots of you guys are actually in the UK and are based in or near London, and it was super nice to meet you. I'm always glad when you guys come up and say hi. Yeah, so thanks for, it was nice to meet you. Thanks. I don't know, what do you say? I don't know. It's a very awkward thing, this whole internet thing. We're not very used to it, but I think it's very nice. I had fun, it was good to meet you, and I'm glad you came up and said hello. So yeah. So I kind of feel like talking about Unravel and acquisitions sort of go hand in hand, because I'm sure you wondered, what did I buy at Unravel? If there were any hints in this frame, yeah, I didn't buy any yarn at all, not a skein. And there's a lot of times I said I didn't buy yarn and then I got a skein, or I picked up one or two, something, some excuse. Nope, no yarn this time. Lots of temptations. Believe me, plenty. I want all of it. But I've had I've had a lot of encounters with my own personal stash lately, and it needs to be knitted up. It is a lot of it, and it's a lot less than what it was. I think I've halved it over the past, like since lockdown started maybe, I don't know, I feel like I've halved it. And the amount of Ravelry entries I had definitely has been halved, so that's cool. So obviously what I needed is stuff to knit them with. So I just beefed up my ChiaoGoo stash. This is all fixed ChiaoGoo circular needles. They're all ChiaoGoo premium stainless steel, the red lace circular needles, and you probably heard me talk about them lots before. They tend to be kind of my go-to needles these days. I talked about them a lot in my knitting review video from a year ago that I still am very proud of. I thought I did a pretty decent job on that one myself, just saying. Yeah, so they aren't the cheapest of circular needles. I will just put that out there. It might be hard to look at someone who's just like, I just bought several in one go, because they're not cheap, and buying even more than two at a time is, oof. And I've amassed quite a lot of these over the years, largely due to like discounts I got when I bought like one set of needle along with like maybe a book or a publication or magazine, and just buying one here and there. I've sort of ended up with each size in the two circumferences that I use, which is 16 inches 40 centimeters and 80 centimeters 32 inches. Those are like the two sizes I alternate between, short and long circumference basically. And I had some gaps in that collection. Some because I managed to break a ChiaoGoo needle or two, and also because I didn't have that many smaller size short circumference needles, and doing like magic loop on like necklines and stuff I'm really not enjoying. There's just too many stitches for the magic loop, but I didn't have a short circular for it, so now I do. And then I just got some other long ones that I just use very often. So yeah, I have filled up those gaps in my ChiaoGoo stash, and I just kind of want to put in a little friendly reminder that please remember that these are business expenses for me. I don't want people to sit here and like feel like they're comparing themselves to people online who buy all sorts of stuff, and then you feel like that's what you're supposed to do. Like there's so much like, there's like a whole like, I hate to say like influencer culture about like fridge stocking and stocking the freezer, stocking the shelves, and it's just people who have bought so much. It's like living in a grocery shop, and then you're just like, right, normal people don't have that, all that, like that, you know, it's never what most people do. And I don't even think like having a bunch of ChiaoGoo needles are necessarily the norm, even if they are your preference, because that is quite expensive to have in every size and takes a long time to buy in every size. And I've certainly spent a long time making sure I have one in every size, and I probably still don't, to be honest. So I just kind of felt like saying something about that instead of just showing off the needles and call it a day, you know. But I really do like ChiaoGoo fixed circulars a lot. They are easily the knitting needles that give me just the least amount of grief. It's just the most sort of smooth sailing, straightforward. And I really like Pearlescence, which is the shop that I always buy mine from. I think, yeah, they are the nicest, pretty straightforward to order from in the UK, and they actually also have the best prices. So everything is just your best choice for getting them personally. I'm just saying, I'm just not a sponsor, just a fan. The other thing I got finally, Knitting Traditions Revisited by Alex Bird, because it's such a beautiful book. I have book envy. I have big book envy. This is such a beautiful book. I mean, look at the cover. Is right up my alley. It is in Estonian based / inspired color work, garments, accessories, etc. by Laine Publishing, by Alex Bird. This is the back of the book. This is Alex. Hi, Alex. So obviously I had to get my mitts on it. I have like a whole cubicle now, like dedicated to Laine published books. And yeah, more on that I guess when I have looked more through. But yes, definitely happy to have added that to my collection. It's been a very long time since I've talked about like books that I bought. I do always mention the yarn that I've got, but I tend to kind of skim over like, yeah, things like needles, accessories, and books and publications. Mostly because I haven't had time to like properly look through them by the time I'm, you know, recording an episode, and I feel like I'm just like talking about something I haven't like properly seen yet. But obviously, clearly I get quite a bit of what comes out. And one of those things I would really like to talk to you guys about today. I should have mentioned it last time, or even at the beginning of this episode, but here we are. Hopefully you stuck to this part. Because I am in a new book. I'm not in the book. I'm here. But I have a pattern in the latest Laine Publishing 52 Weeks of Accessories book. So they have a bunch of these books. I have them back here again. There's like 52 Weeks of Socks, volume 1 and 2. There's 52 weeks of shawls and scarves and stuff. I've got all of them. I bought all of them. So obviously I would have bought the 52 weeks of accessories as well. But the reason I don't have it here is because, well, they were going to send it to me because I am one of the designers in this book. But I couldn't give them my address until I actually had this address that I'm living in right now. So that's just kind of why I'm waiting for it. But they put my pattern on the cover, which I can't get over. Honestly, that was such a lovely surprise. Like, I don't know how to even like express that. Like, I knew I was going to be one of the 52 designers in this book, or at least, you know, my designs being one of the 52 designs in this book, and probably being somewhere in the middle. People maybe knit my mittens by the time summer comes around. Like, I don't really know what I was expecting, but I did not expect them to pick my pattern to go on the cover. So my mittens are gracing the cover of the latest hit from Laine. Like, probably one of the biggest publishers in knitting right now. Yeah. Huh. So I'm very excited about that, and it was just so much fun to see that, not just in the yarn shops that I took my friend to last week, but also at Unravel, where a lot of people were showing this book and selling this book at their booths. Yeah. Thank you, Laine. That was so lovely, and I hope people will enjoy the mittens that are in this book. And I just want to talk a little bit about them. They are definitely kind of like my typical sort of Saru silhouette kind of style mitten with a Norwegian colourwork chart gracing the front, and I used Lofoten Wool's 2-ply yarn, which I love Lofoten Wool so much. I love their yarn. It's definitely a favourite of mine in Norway. Many designs coming in that yarn, let me just tell you that. I mean, I went to their farm in Lofoten 2 years ago on a caravan trip with my friend Emilia, who was visiting last week, so like it was just such an experience. And another thing about this pattern is that it has a Latvian braid along the cuff, but the cuff is folded upwards, kind of like the brim of a hat, and the Latvian braid is around here on the cuff. But if you fold that cuff down, and I'm not sure there are any photos of this in the book or on the pattern page, I could be wrong, don't have it yet obviously, but if you fold the cuff all the way down along the arm, if you want to have it warm your entire sleeve, the Latvian braid is still showing on that side now, because it's kind of like a reversible Latvian braid. There's nothing fancy about it, it's just that you work Latvian braids on both sides of the cuff and in the same place, so kind of alternating each side. It will make sense in the pattern. It's nothing too revolutionary, but I just thought it was like a really neat feature that you can have the Latvian braid no matter how you want to wear the mittens. So you can get those in the book. It is the way it is with all these patterns that you get published. You don't have the rights for them while they are, you know, new. There is a given number of months or years, depending on the rules of the contract or whatever, that they are exclusive to that book, and that is currently the case. So yeah, just want to give a big shout out to that, and thanks so much to Laine for putting my pattern in your book. And that concludes the knitting, crochet, crafting, yarny stuff of this episode. The rest is just going to be life stuff about my place here that, you know, just moved to. It's been a month. It's 5 weeks on the day today. Very exciting. Still feels very new, but I also like can't imagine going back to my old place anymore. Like this is definitely where I like default to going now, which is kind of wild after having lived in Hoxton Shoreditch for 12 years. Yeah, been a while. I even went to one of the local food shops in this area, and the guy who was running it was like, first a bit confused about who I was, and then was like, oh, you're not the lady who usually comes here. Okay, well, where are you coming from? And I was like, oh, I just moved here. I was like, oh, where from? And I was like telling him about where I came from, and he was like, oh yeah, that's like my area too. And we're just like reminiscing about how it's just not affordable there anymore. Now we come down here. It's just like a lot of people's story, to be honest. I do miss my old neighborhood a lot. It comes to me in waves. It does. But I'm simultaneously trading that off with, you know, the excitement of enjoying this area and exploring and trying out something new. And there's some excitement about that to just, you know, I don't know quite what's around the corner yet. I haven't memorized everything. I have a very good spatial memory. My memory for everything else, awful. Spatial memory, excellent. So good, is like a talent of mine. Like I don't appreciate it enough. Once I've been somewhere once, I know it really well. So I got that going for me here. But yeah, we've had an incident here. Do you want to hear it? I'm going to tell you anyway. So I was getting a new boiler, which the cost of that, that aside, the engineer who came over to install the boiler, obviously as you have to do, you switched off the gas to start working and was like, you still have gas. That's not your meter. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not my meter. It's my meter. Like, no, it's not. You still have gas. I switched it off, but you still have gas. And he kept like trying all the meters that we have for this building until he identified my meter, and that is my neighbor's meter, but he's supplying me with gas. So my meter is supplying him with gas. Problem. And naive little me thought, what you do is just tell your energy provider that, hey, it's the wrong meter. You gotta change it. And they're like, oh, no, that's in the national database. That is your meter. I was like, no, really? The engineer has been here and tested it. It isn't. The national database is wrong. And then they're like, oh, right, well, then we're no longer your provider because you have given us the wrong meter, and we're going to file that as an erroneous transfer and refer you back to your old provider. Mind you, I just moved here. I don't have an old provider. It's going to be the previous owner's provider. And only the provider can change the national database. But we're no longer your provider. There's like engineers hearing all this in the background because I can't listen over phones. I need a speakerphone. And it's just like, you can't believe it. Like, what is going on? And so I'm calling around every energy provider, all the new to figure this out. Everyone's just saying like, no, you don't have an account with us. We're not your provider. We can't do this. And they keep going on about old providers. So I realized at some point that the provider that they're talking about isn't my provider. That's my neighbor's provider. That's the provider of the meter that's supplying me with gas. That's the provider they're talking about. And so I managed to talk to them, and they managed to talk to my neighbor because he's actually their customer. And I finally talked to my neighbor as well, who's upstairs, and he's really nice. And at least we're on the same page about this, that we've got to set this right. And but it's kind of mostly just me doing it, because I'm the one who's sort of taking this on, and he seemed a bit confused about the whole thing, to be honest. So his provider, which is kind of an old timer in this game, have been very reliable and been able to just like, once I got to the right person, mind you, set things in motion to change the meter so that it's actually registered to me. That's the meter they're supplying. Now my provider is supposed to do the opposite, but they're refusing, and I had to go to the ombudsman for that, and the ombudsman's like, maybe don't go there just yet. Why don't you just talk to Citizen Advice, which is like a British kind of service that I thought only gives advice, legal advice, but these guys actually took on my case entirely and took it upon themselves to make my provider do these changes. And thank goodness for that. It was so helpful. But then Laine calls me back a couple of days later and is like, I've been on the phone with your energy provider. And the way that she was describing it was exactly the phone call I had had with them the day before, where me and my friend is like sat out on Greenwich Pier enjoying the beautiful day, and I'm just on the phone with this woman who's just going around in circles just saying like, no, we can't do this because we were given the wrong meter, so we have to defer you to your previous provider. And I keep saying, but my previous provider were in the same situation. It was the same thing for them. They could do the same thing and just send back, and we could keep going back for decades until former providers no longer exist. Like, you guys have to do this. It doesn't make any sense to keep deferring back and returning to previous providers when everyone's been supplying the wrong meters. And they're just not listening. They keep saying, oh, but it's been the wrong meter. I'm like, I swear. If this is driving you a little bit loopy listening to it, imagine what it did to me. And this woman is now on the Citizen Advice. Lovely woman, super helpful. We were just laughing at the whole thing because it's just like, she's like, it's very clear to me she's had the exact same conversation with them. But thankfully she calls me back later that day and says that my provider has changed their mind. They have realized they were wrong. They apologized, well, to her. Maybe apologize to your customer too, but just, you know. And now they're just like closed like all the bills and everything until this gets sorted in a month or two. It takes forever apparently. So it's getting done, and hopefully I'm not paying for my neighbor's gas bills anymore because they were high. And that was also part of my decisions to get the new energy efficient boiler, and not that I'm ever gonna like make even on that one, but you know, still. The things you find out, this is home ownership. I was gonna say in a nutshell, but it's actually not, because this is apparently such an unusual thing to happen. Nobody knew what to do about it, and I had to become an expert in 24 hours. And it's felt the better of one, if not 2 working days, just on various phone calls, explaining a situation to people that I barely understood myself. I've literally just become a homeowner, and I'm just like, but it's getting sorted. It was just a wild ride getting there. Oof. So I've been getting to know the neighborhood, the neighbors and that kind of thing. And you guys may remember that I had some issues with the next door peoples because they are just incredibly loud. There's been a lot of loud music playing, and that had been going on for 4 weeks until exactly a week ago, when me and my friend were like discussing like, this is just too much. Like, I am very sensitive, so I sometimes just go, am I just overreacting to this, or is this just like objectively not okay? Which I don't really think there's such a thing as objectively not okay. If someone's not okay with it, they're not okay with it, right? But here we are, and my friend's like, you know, I do think that these are things you need to expect living in a city, and people have the right to listen to music. But that being said, this is like living next to a bar, and you live in a residential area. It is not okay. This is not acceptable. And I decided, let's just go and knock on the door and like just ask for them to tone it down. And what happened is that I'm going over there like looking like a rainbow, the whole colors, everything, and I'm smiling and I'm being really lovely, just like, hey, can you just like turn down the music? And there's just like this tiny old man who just looked like, I don't even know how to read his expression. There wasn't really an expression. I don't know if it was confusion, being mortified, or just confused. I just said that. Anyway, he said very little, and it was just okay, bye. And we weren't sure if he even understood me and if he was just going to carry on and pretend he didn't understand. But no, it's been completely quiet since, apart from when he's on the phone and his dog, but you know, no loud music at all. So I guess he wasn't aware. Maybe he's hard of hearing. There could be lots of good reasons, but now I just feel so guilty. Right, this is like why you can't win when you first start complaining like that. And it definitely wasn't how I wanted to be introduced to my neighbor, but like after 4 weeks, you know, what do you do? So I now just feel so guilty, right? Because like either way, like one scenario was that I wasn't going to change the volume, and that would have been really bad. I would have felt like there's nothing I can do. Or what ended up happening is that he was actually considerate and changed the volume, and now I feel guilty and I feel like I've like hurt my neighbor's feelings, and I just want to be on good terms with my neighbors. And yeah, so that happened. Oh well, we can laugh at it. We can do that. This is fine. Had another introduction to a neighbor who lives upstairs, and was buzzing on the front of the building saying, hi, it's from number so-and-so. He didn't just say hi, say hi darling, it's from number so-and-so. Can I get a minute of your time? And I was like, what is this? Who is this? If a dude rings your doorbell and you're a young female living alone and someone refers to you as darling, you don't really open the door. And why would he buzz on the building if he lives here? So I didn't really open it because I thought maybe he just meant someone else. But then he knocks on the door, so I was like, okay. I open, my friend is here, so it's not, you know. And he just looked so surprised that it was me. He expected the previous owner, but obviously she's moved, and yeah, it was just such a funny interaction. But yeah, he was cool, it was great. But yeah, he was gonna install like surveillance cameras, and I was like, you're gonna what? And I just woke up from a nap, and I don't do naps, I've just said that. So I was very confused. But I went into him the next day and I was just like trying to clarify, like, why are you getting them installed above my yard? I don't get it. You don't live down on the ground level. I don't understand. I think he probably tried to explain it to me, but I didn't understand it until later. I guess it just occurred to me that he just wants cameras facing his car. That's what happened there. So I'm getting introduced to the neighborhood. Everything is very strange, but it's sort of fine and funny. And I like the upstairs people. Everyone upstairs I met so far have been great. It's the downstairs people that's just been incredibly awkward. The one on one side was just like staring at me, and the one on the other side who just like, you know, looked at me in horror when I said, please, can you just make it just a bit quiet? It's just very loud in here, in the music. And yeah, life in London. Ooh. There are also news on the home front in Norway. My mom's getting a puppy, so I have to get home soon. Because it's not a puppy, it's like a little teddy bear guinea pig. Right, so I've got to go home and see the teddy bear guinea pig. But no plans yet, but that's something I'd really like to do. I just thought you guys want to see that phase. I mean, what can you say really? So cute. And then hopefully, you know, I get to see my nephew again and it will be so good. But yeah, that was the latest on the knitting, the crochet, the life and the stuff and everything. So I need a nap desperately. But I hope you guys are all doing well, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.